Well, good afternoon. This is my weekly video again. I've got one favor to ask of everyone. Please stop complimenting Jacqueline on her videoing. It's getting to her head. Now, actually, I'm just kidding. She's doing a good job, and it's okay. On a more serious note, this was another tough week in many ways. This past Sunday, we had the death of a 5-year-old, Skylar Herbert, who succumbed to the COVID-19, the youngest child so far to do so. She's an African-American girl. Just sad. I feel for her parents and everybody who knew her. That brings me to the topic of the governor's Michigan Task Force on Racial Disparity, which I have the honor of serving on. And one thing about this task force, I have to say, I'm actually very impressed. I get on a lot of these committees and task forces, and a lot of times we meet and not a lot gets done that is really worth mentioning. This task force has been meeting twice a week, and I can tell you that the work that is coming out of this task force is really great. A lot of communication strategies have been developed and implemented, as well as a few big ideas that's going to help, not just help in 10 years from now, but help now in terms of trying to level this racial disparity that we're seeing right now here in Michigan, with African Americans not only getting the COVID-19 more frequently, but dying of it more frequently. So I'm very impressed with the work of the task force, and I thought I should just mention that. Oh, by the way, for those of you who haven't met him, this is Quincy, our ferocious guard dog. Say hi, Quincy. In other news this week, my executive team, as well as all of the deans of the colleges, decided to take a voluntary pay cut. But the amount of money is not going to be that much that is going to make a huge dent in the general fund. So we wanted to put it to some use that we thought could make a difference. And so the amount of the pay cut is going toward helping students who are not eligible for the federal stimulus dollars, or so-called CARES dollars. Because the way we all feel about it is that if there are students, then we should take care of them as we do all of our students. And there are certain categories of students that are not covered by CARES, and so we wanted these funds to go toward those students, and we certainly hope that students get the message, particularly those who are not covered by CARES, and reach out, and we'll see if we can be helpful in these very, very difficult times. One of the questions I've been asked a lot this week by various media is, what's fall semester going to look like? And honestly, I can't tell you. What I can tell you is that it's not going to look like it did pre-COVID-19, and it's not going to look like what it does right now or post-COVID-19 in terms of the latter half of the last semester in this summer semester. So it'll be some combination, whether it leans more toward online or more toward in person. It's difficult to say at this point. We have to be ready for both, but the thing that I want to just stress is we have to be guided by the science. And so we'll see how things are later in the summer, And if there's any way we can bring classes back on safely on campus, we would certainly do that because that's our preference. But safety is going to be our top consideration. So stay tuned in terms of that, and I'll keep you updated. Finally, in terms of books, I had a very, well, actually, it was kind of a funny response to my request last week to suggest, recommend possible books. And by the way, I've received a lot of recommendations, and so I'm very grateful for that. There was one that gave me a bit of a chuckle, though, and I won't quote it exactly, but basically he said, forget the books, and let's talk about cycling. And he asked me some questions about my indoor training and so forth. Well, what I'm going to tell you is that I'm going to combine the two, okay? And it's kind of a long story, but there's a reasoning behind it. So the book I'm reading is called Genghis Khan, and it was recommended by someone, and I'm about done with it, and it's actually a great book. And the reason why I selected that book is that when I cycle indoors, I'd like to look at Netflix series. They're about 50 minutes long, and so if I can do, a couple of them, that's almost 2 hours. Otherwise, I just can't stay interested in cycling indoors. I just get too bored. And the Netflix series I was watching was called Marco Polo. And Marco Polo had a relationship with Kublai Khan, who was the grandson of Genghis Khan. And so in the book that I'm reading, there's a lot of mention of his grandsons and his sons, and I'm beginning to understand these complex relationships. And so the two are going hand in hand, the cycling and the book. I'm almost done with Genghis Khan, so I look forward to moving on to one of the other recommendations that you all have so kindly provided me. That's it for this week. Appreciate everything that you're all doing to continue to stay indoors and stay safe. See you next week.